What's up, YouTube? So today we are going to be talking about how to basically make your technology, your old technology, modern. And this is really ironic because it's older technology, but with the power of software, you can do a lot with older devices. So don't let it discourage you if you don't have anything new around. If you can't get anything new, or if you have to buy secondhand, don't worry about it. You can still be productive. It may not be as quick, but you can get the job done. And if you're motivated, you will find a way. So let's start talking about this. And this is kind of the philosophy behind older devices. You don't necessarily want to throw them out because there's a lot of resources that they were intended to be used for and can still be used for today. For example, I'm already using this tablet right here, the Nexus 7, as my notes, and I can also use it for prompting and everything like that. So it works really well. It's very comfortable to hold, and it's from 2013. Again, a little bit old, but it does the job. A lot of people also like to use it, particularly this tablet, for embedding it in a car. And you can download plenty of apps out there that have some cool auto features on it, especially if you have the 3G version of this device. But you can always pair it to a hotspot, which is really cool. So, for example, you can have a little interface in your car that can play Spotify. You can talk to it. You can tell it to do navigation. It is actually a really, really cool thing that you can do with this. Another thing that you can do with this tablet is, I should mention that you can do it with tablets, with phones, and what you can do is you can use this as a security camera as long as you have, obviously, a camera built into it. There is a cool app called Presence, which allows you to basically use your phone or your old tablet as a security camera. So if you leave, you can actually use it and record footage and have motion tracking, and you don't need to go out and buy one of those fancy home cameras. So it's actually really kind of neat. And again, this is the power of software. And another thing I want to point out is if you're traveling a lot and you have an iPad, an iPhone, an old device, and you want to go for a workout, you want to go for a run, you don't want to basically have your most expensive devices with you, it might be a good idea to bring a cheaper device or a secondhand device just because you don't want to get it stolen. And if you do get it stolen, it's not necessarily the end of the world as far as that's concerned. Another thing you might want to consider doing is with the iPad, the iPhone, and all this stuff is you might want to consider giving it to your kids and putting some parental controls on it. So that way you have the ability not to have to get them something new, like the Nexus, for example, in this case, does the job pretty well. And if you have an Android device, and I'm not trying to necessarily push Android device, but I will say this, my Android device works just as well as I got it, as opposed to, unfortunately, I've got an iPad here, that's the third generation, and it's not as smooth as it was. I kind of wish I kept the old software on it. Having said that, it still supports a lot of the same apps that I use today, and I can watch movies on it, for example. Just a little bit of a side note there. But you, with an Android device, you have the opportunity to load a web server on it. You have the opportunity to root the device. You have the opportunity to possibly put another operating system on it. And that will allow you to learn more about operating systems and things that you want to do with tech. So that falls in the category of phones, tablets, between both of those as far as that's concerned. Now let's talk about computers, which technically these are, but let's really go into more of the traditional sense of computers. Like, more likely you have something like this floating around. So as far as that's concerned, this really opens the world of opportunities up to you. And most likely you have a laptop, and if you have an old desktop, that's really good as well. Install Linux on it, just like I said you could do with the tablets. And once you install Linux on it, you have an open platform to do whatever you want to do. Create a file server, keep yourself organized, get old games to play on it. There's something, for example, called DOSBox, which is open source. It's kind of Linux, and you can install it on a USB drive and play your old games on this without having to necessarily install Windows and having to pay for anything license related. So it's actually really kind of neat. And you also have the ability to create a web server with WordPress on Linux, and you have the ability to just do a bunch of things, create your own server, have your own platform. Believe it or not, these computers, from a server perspective, are fantastic. They are really good. Even an old computer, if you have a decent one with at least a gig of RAM, I would say, even if you don't, even if you have 512 megabytes of RAM, you can do some really cool things. For example, you could install a router, create your own little router that will allow you to basically, you could create your own access point, your own wireless. There's a lot of cool things you may want to consider doing. I also personally, what I did with an old laptop was I created an arcade machine and I used it as its core. So basically I had something called Hyperspin on it, which you kind of need a little bit of a beefier system, but if you have something basic, it should be okay. I would just look at the requirements of that, but again, the possibilities of using this are endless and doing it yourself projects. If I didn't already mention it before, people use the Nexus 7 in their car. A lot of people do a little car setup for it and have it plugged in. I think I did mention that. So as far as utilizing the resources of what you have, computers are really powerful. Computers can be used in so many ways, and you really shouldn't necessarily think about throwing them out first. You should think about what you can do to get the most out of what you already had. And they were designed to be multifunctional. They were designed to be so you can use this. And software is what is the core behind this. In my opinion, software is more important than hardware. Software can utilize old hardware a lot better than hardware can utilize software, in my opinion. This is my opinion. But as far as the philosophy is concerned, don't throw out your technology. You also want to you might want to keep your tech resources. So you might want to don't throw out a mouse, don't throw out memory, don't throw out old things, because you may need it someday. Especially if you deal with older servers, for example, you may actually need a PS2 mouse or a PS2 keyboard. So just don't throw this stuff away just yet. Think about it before you throw it away. And don't just throw it in the trash. A lot of people do that. I just don't want it, I'll throw it out. Don't do that. It's not... There's so many things and people that actually could utilize your resource that you might want to throw out. For example, libraries like to take in old computers because they like to have people learn things on the computer, and some people can't afford a new computer, so donating a computer to your local library, I wouldn't say schools, because schools usually get grants and they get computers, but even if the school is willing to take it, make sure it goes to a good project. Make sure maybe it would go to a makerspace that would allow kids, again, to experience Linux, to experience the free and open source world out there, and not necessarily just be tied to Windows, which, again, you could do quite a bit with your stuff. For example, I will give you the use cases scenario. Obviously, I use this for YouTube and for my notes and everything, reading including. I use this for my little TV out in my kitchen, which I'll show you at some point. And I can use it for DirecTV Now. I can use it for Plex. This thing works great. It's a nice large screen for me. I will be using it. I'm going to be creating YouTube videos on the stuff that I make new things for. I'm going to be making this into somewhat of a Linux server. I will be doing some file sharing with it. And I forgot to mention, for file sharing, there's also another cool application out there called FreeNAS, which, again, everything that we talk about here, I'm going to put it in the link in the description, but we're going to end up doing these videos as projects, creating a FreeNAS server, creating Linux, just diving into this stuff. This is my modern tech philosophy. Not just to get new stuff, which I love. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to get new stuff and we're going to showcase it off on this channel, but we're going to utilize what we have on this. I also have, for example, I have an older iMac, which I use as well, and I'll be using that for some server applications and virtual machines, which we'll get into. I am really excited about this channel. I hope you guys are as well. This is just really me blabbering a little bit about use cases for technology. Don't throw out tech unless you absolutely think it's not usable from somebody. I think somebody could get a use out of technology, and this is the modern tech philosophy today. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Hopefully the content gets better over time and I get rid of this couch and make it a nice gray couch. Anyways, thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more videos.